Well, let me ask you, how have you been able to bless others? As we conclude this Bless Challenge, have you been able to see God at work in your life as you pray for your neighbors, your coworkers, and as you listen to their story, as you engage with them, as you find ways to serve them, and as you find ways to share your faith story with them? The Apostle Paul really, throughout the book of Acts, lived out this whole idea of blessing everyone he comes in contact with, to bless them by advancing Jesus' kingdom, letting them know what God has done for them. And in Acts chapter 28, Paul finds himself shipwrecked on the island of Malta, along with the other travelers. Paul had been turned on by the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem, and he was afraid they were going to kill him, so he appealed to Caesar. Paul, interestingly, was not only a Jewish Pharisee, he was also a Roman citizen because of where he was born in Tarsus. And as a result, he had the right as a Roman citizen to appeal to the highest court in Rome. So he's on his way to Rome when they have this shipwreck. And they're shipwrecked on the island of Malta. The locals show great kindness to Paul and his companions. But then one night he's gathering firewood for a fire and a snake bites him. Paul miraculously suffers no harm, which the people were pretty superstitious. So their first thought is, he's evil. He must have murdered someone or done something horrible. But when God allows him to go unscathed, they decide, oh, this man must be of God. And so God uses these things to further his causes. I sometimes wonder if the writer in Mark chapter 16 is referring to this when he says that those who follow Jesus can even be bitten by snakes and survive. Maybe he's thinking back to this incident with Paul, because obviously we don't always when we're bitten by snakes. But Paul later meets a man named Publius, who is the official on the island. His father was sick, so Paul takes every opportunity. He goes, "Can I pray for your father?" Well, God uses that to heal his father. That opens up opportunity, and they're invited to stay the next 3 months, and many on that island then heard about Jesus as a result. Paul then sets sail again after 3 months, and they arrive in Rome, the capital of the Roman Empire. And the local believers in Jesus come to Paul. They have a great celebration. He reminds them of the teaching of Jesus. And then Paul does something interesting. He gathers the Jewish leaders from the synagogues, and he begins to explain the message of Jesus, telling them through the prophets. I kind of envision, like I've done for you many years, showing through the Old Testament prophets how God foretold all this. And it interestingly says, some believed and others rejected it. And as a result, Paul quotes this prophecy from Isaiah, from the Hebrew Scriptures, about how people will harden their hearts and not have ears to hear, so that God's able to heal them. But then he says, but this message is now going to the Gentiles, the non-Jewish world, because they will listen. And then the chapter ends with Paul staying in house arrest with a guard, waiting for trial for about 2 years. He ends up writing some of the New Testament letters, it turns out. He welcomes all to come to him, and he continues to boldly proclaim Jesus and teach about Jesus. And that's the summary, not only of Acts 28, but the book of Acts, really. It shows how God was at work. God's Holy Spirit was at work using Paul even through challenging circumstances, as Paul stayed open and was willing to be bold about letting everyone know about the message of Jesus, whether Jews or Gentiles, no matter what happened or where he was. He always was thinking, what are you doing, God, and how can I further your kingdom in this situation? So let me just summarize and end by like this. I want to encourage you to just keep blessing people. Some will reject it, but they're not rejecting you. That's what Jesus said. They're rejecting the one that you represent. But others will believe. And there's no greater joy on earth than to know that you've helped someone else find life. So let's be those who go into the world. Let's live out Acts 29 as the Holy Spirit continues to work through you to bring his message to the world.